So Tinkercad is browser-based software. It's free. Just go to the website, set up an account. There's a bunch of my models that I have. Here's the one I made for the zoo, Bee-Guard, which is going to look like it's going to work for your deck. So I just copied that and dropped it into Tinkercad to work on a new project. Tinkercad's pretty easy to use. It's basically a collection of shapes you combine to make an object. So here I'm taking a cylinder, kind of creating the size I want. I can adjust the height, the width, etc. And so I've created this little cylinder. Now what I'm going to do is create a bar using the square object. And again, I can resize it any way I want to. And they're independent, the cylinder and the square. I get it to where I want to. And then what I'll do is I'll select the rectangle and I'll select the cylinder. And I'll tell it to join them together, so it now becomes one object. And I just kind of repeated that process to create the guard that you see there. Next, Tom had shared that the size of hole you're looking to cover is 2.5 inches. That's 63.5 millimeters. Almost all this stuff works best in metric, the software and the printer and all that, so I've just gotten used to that. You can adjust all sorts of features like how smooth the curve is. And so what I'm doing here is just basically creating a little disc that is 2.5 inches or 63.5 wide. And I'm going to see how well the guard will cover that. And we got super lucky. It's perfect the way it is, so I'm not going to have to resize it or reshape it or anything like that. So that's excellent. But as you'll see in a second here, it's pretty easy to also adjust the size. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the 3D model and we're going to export it to an .stl file format. That's just a 3D model format. So I'm just saving that to a disk and I'm going to put it on a micro SD card. Now we get into slicing. For 3D printers, they print in layers, so you have to take that 3D model and cut it into a bunch of individual layers for the printer to know how to print it. So I brought in the model we created in Thingiverse. And I mentioned you could do some things to adjust size, so you can go in while you're in Cura, which is the software you can download for free. And I can change it to say, let's make it twice as big, 200%. There you go. But I'm not going to have to do that in this case, so we'll go ahead and return it back to its regular size, and then we're going to slice it. Prior to slicing, there's lots and lots of different configurations and things you can do. Kind of for purposes of this video, just talk about a couple really important ones. The first one is infill. Now, if you don't want to print the piece as a solid piece of plastic, which would use up a lot of your filament, you can create kind of a honeycomb structure inside of it so it doesn't use as much plastic. And then the base. And so I use a raft, which is a big individual sheet underneath the model. This has helped me. It uses more plastic, but when I'm printing on the printer bed doesn't slide around as much as it does with some of the other bases. I've got some configuration I could do to improve that, but for now I just print everything on top of a raft, and you'll see how you can detach that later. So we sliced it, and now you can basically pull the controls up and down and see the individual layers being how they'll be printed. And you see some of that honeycomb action I was talking about for the inside. And you can also view to see where the print head on the printer is going to be, the path it'll follow on each layer if you just want to see how this is going to print out. now it's printing time. This is my printer. It's a Creality CR10S. There's a control box on the left and then the printer itself on the right. I take that micro SD card that we have the sliced model on. I put it in the control box and then go down to print from SD and scroll till I find the G code. G code is the language the printer understands to say on this layer print here, on this layer print here, etc. Whether it's going to do the raft, what type of infill, all that information is contained in the G code. The nozzle needs to heat up often to like 210 Celsius, and the bed itself, the mirror bed you see there, to 50 degrees Celsius. So the printer starts off, does a little line to kind of make sure everything's going okay, and now it's starting the process to print that raft that we're going to print the guard on. This print took about 2 hours to complete, and a big chunk of that was printing the raft, but again, that saves me from, I've had a lot of prints fail without using the raft, so I use the raft to be a base for whatever I print. And there's the raft. Now it's begun to print the actual object we're looking to print. You can again see the honeycombs on the inside there. So a big chunk of this is hollow, but it's still got good integrity, and you can change it from 50% infill to 20% infill, etc. And then there's the final print. It's ready to go. It's sitting on the raft, so you remove it, and there is your guard.